Shalom. Welcome to Live from Jerusalem. We're kicking off a week long of pre-Aliyah programming, inspirational programs, together with a lot of logistical information to help you plan better for your Aliyah to Jerusalem. Tonight, we'll hear from 6 Olim and their Aliyah journeys and success and how they are loving Jerusalem so far. A little taste into different stories from a wide variety of fields. I will get into it one by one. But first, I want to go over the full week in its entirety so we know what to expect this week. So tonight we have Aliyah Express stories. On Tuesday night, we have a night where we will learn all about the Aliyah process, have a basic meeting about each of the important Aliyah offices, government offices, and important processes in your Aliyah, and help make a little order about how to go through that process and how to begin until you end up here safely. On Thursday, we'll hear from a number of elementary schools in Jerusalem to learn about the wide variety of educational options for your children in Jerusalem. And Sunday night, we'll have a panel of neighborhoods. We have 4 nights of programming, Facebook right here live on this event page for the next 8 nights, starting tonight. We hope you join for as much as you can, and be in touch. If you miss anything, we could always send you a recording. In addition to that, myself, my name is Yaakov, first of all, if I didn't introduce myself appropriately. My name is Yaakov Berger. I'm an Aliyah coordinator at the Jerusalem area. I work together with Israel Cohen. He's the other Aliyah coordinator for English speakers. It is our pleasure, joy, and honor to help Olim, English-speaking Olim, find their way to Jerusalem, and when they get here, to have the transition go as smoothly as possible. Israel, if you just want to say hi so they can see your face and hear your voice for a minute.
Shalom uvracha, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here. Looking forward to a fantastic week.
So myself and Yisrael will be hosting this week through these 4 programmings. Again, hope you can enjoy as much as possible. In addition, we are available for one-on-one strategic Aliyah planning. We'll send we have links on a website called Calendly. Those links will appear in the chat towards the end of the night. Feel free to book meetings with us. We're available to speak in half-hour blocks to help plan your Aliyah. In addition to all the Aliyah logistical planning, Yisrael is an educational consultant, and I do career counseling. So feel free, if you have a special question about careers, feel free to be in touch directly with me on my Calendly link. And if you need to talk about education and where to send your children to school, please reach out to Yisrael and book educational consultation. Highly, highly, highly recommended. On our lineup tonight, we're going to hear from, as I mentioned, 6 Olim and hear their stories of how they make it, how they're making it, and how Yerushalayim is treating them so far. First, we will hear from John Medved, founder and CEO of OurCrowd. More about him in a minute. Orli Wahba, she's a social entrepreneur and again has her hand in many very cool projects. We'll hear about those soon after. Kalman Delmoor, an artist, sits in the old city and created like a new brand of classic art. Again, fascinating, its own discussion that will come up. Maggi Feldman started a small business owner in Jerusalem, made Aliyah just about half a year ago, and is already has started a small business during the Corona times. And lastly, then we will hear from our most special guest, Fleur, the deputy mayor. She is of the city of Jerusalem. She herself in Ola has a fascinating story and a lot of insight into what is happening in the city of Jerusalem. A real treat to hear from her towards the end of the night. And if you stick around long enough, you'll get musical entertainment from Jason Rosenblatt and his dear wife, Rachel Lemisch. They made Aliyah also in the past year with 4 children, have been really thriving and living life. And we'll hear from them and also get to hear some music from them as well. Before we pass it on to our participants, I just want to give I myself made Aliyah just a short 11 or 12 years ago. It's hard to count these days, and it just is such a pleasure. My time living in Yerushalayim, I sincerely feel every person who's drawn to Israel has at least one chapter of life in Jerusalem. I would say several of my most special chapter of lives are taking place in Jerusalem as we speak. And it's just a pleasure to be here. Any support, feel free to reach out to us personally. In addition to the Calendly links, we'll also leave our WhatsApp numbers. You can send WhatsApp messages to myself or Yisrael for any inquiries you have. Yisrael, if you just want to tell a little bit about yourself as Nolan Yerushalayim before we pass it on to John, who will open the official presentations.
Sure. My name is Yisrael. I'm originally from London in England, and we made Aliyah over 20 years ago. It's incredible how you can live in Israel for 20 years and still have an English accent like you left England yesterday morning. We live in Kalman with our 6 children. Baruch Hashem, it's absolutely wonderful. I live, love, and very passionate about life in Jerusalem. Very excited for this opportunity to hear about inspiring stories from 6 different people who all have totally varied stories about their Jerusalem life. And I hope that their stories will resonate with you, and that you'll be able, please God, one day find yourselves living with us here in this magical city. Hatzlacha Rabbah.
Okay, without further ado, I want to introduce Jonathon Medved. Aside from being the founder and CEO of OurCrowd, it's just an amazing person, and pleasure to have him as part of the community of Jerusalem Olim. Describes himself as a serial entrepreneur and was named by the New York Times in 2008 as one of the top most influential Americans who have impacted Israel. Not a title that they throw out a lot, I imagine. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here with us tonight and to hear a little bit about what you do and how Jerusalem.
Thank you, Yaakov. Appreciate it. It's great to be here with you. My first advice to you is to get your behinds over here and make Aliyah, because it seems as though there are going to be a lot of people coming. As soon as we open up that airport, the world is going to come back here in a big way, and for very good reason. And so you don't want to be at the end of the line. You want to be at the first. I got here as a kid. I've been here for now over 40 years. I grew up in a pretty typical Southern California, not really terribly affiliated home. We were considered Jewish fanatics in our neighborhood on the west side of LA because we had a Pesach Seder, which of course no one referred to as Pesach, was always Passover. I went through the 60s and was a very active participant in the 60s and early 70s. Went to Berkeley, where I was a Berkeley radical, and ended up coming to Israel for the first time to visit in 1973, and it had a huge impact on me. I became a Zionist, and I ultimately made Aliyah in 1980, but I studied history in school, and I figured that I was going to work in education or work for the Jewish Agency, both of which I actually did, and was busy doing that, not making a great living, but getting by here in Israel. And my father showed up to see how I was doing in 1982. So that gives you an idea of how far back we're going. And I was doing okay, but he said, look, come with me on this trip. He was an entrepreneur doing work with fiber optic communications. And he had some contacts up in a place called Raphael, which is the Missile Development Authority north of Haifa. And he said, you come with me and you'll translate. So I went up to this meeting. There was no need to translate. They spoke perfect English. I didn't have an iPhone in those days. It was about 30 years too early. So I basically sat there bored to tears while they talked tech, because I never had taken a class in science of any kind, even though I went to one of the great engineering schools of all, Berkeley, but I was a history guy. And at the end of this meeting, for 2 hours of torture, where I sat there trying to look interested and was bored to tears, one of the scientists turns to me and asks me, okay, Medved Jr., and he did this in Hebrew to protect my sort of embarrassment. He goes, what do you do? And I told him what I did. I was doing a little tour guiding. I was teaching a couple of classes, working for the agency. And he said to me some words which echo through the ages, at least in my life. He said, Bizbuz totali. And I said, what? I really felt like I was slapped. He had just said my life was a total waste, which I didn't appreciate. And I said, excuse me, Mapitom, what, WTF, what are you talking about here? And he said, look, Askanim, people like you, we've got a dime a dozen. Your dad's an entrepreneur. Be more like your dad. And so on the way back from that sort of, important meeting, I asked my dad what he did, because I really never understood. And he said, son, it's a long story. It starts with Ohm's law, which of course I had no idea what that was. And make a long story short, hopefully, within a week, he had agreed to pay me $100 a month to stay in touch with these guys at Raphael and to open up some contacts at Israel Aircraft and Tadiran. And that's how my business career was started or launched, based on an old Jewish tradition called nepotism. And I learned, business and science on my own and reinvented myself as a high-tech person. Now, just to give you a little context, back in those days, which are the early 80s, there was not a single venture capital fund in Israel. There were hardly any startups. The first fund was established in 1986, 4 years later, and I ultimately started working with my father, raised for him the first money he ever raised, and ultimately built a company, which together we sold to Amoco, the big oil company. And when I look back at this story and the 40 years that have happened since then, roughly, I realized that it couldn't have happened anywhere else probably in the world. And certainly Jerusalem was a big part of it, because reinvention is sort of our middle name here. The old Zionist phrase, Anu banu arza livnot ulehibanot ba. We've come to Israel to build and to be built by it, is literally true. This is a place where some people, God forbid, get affected by Jerusalem syndrome and sort of freak out. But most of us are affected in a good way by the promise and the ability to actually reinvent yourself. And that doesn't mean you have to change your career and throw away everything else. But there's this ability, this energy you tie into, which allows you to go from history to high tech. And I've had, thank God, a wonderful career of over 40 years, built several successful companies, now run the largest venture capital investment platform in Israel and one of in the world called OurCrowd. And it turns out that over the last 40 years in particular, Israel has become a high-tech powerhouse, right? In other words, you guys might not be aware that last year there was $10 billion invested in Israeli startups. That was up 20% from 2019. And that means that we grew our ecosystem as a whole by 25%. Okay, last year was a year of terrible stress and suffering for many of us on multiple levels. But the tech economy just powered on. And it turns out that now Israel represents about 4% of the world venture capital market in terms of dollars, which is pretty remarkable when you realize that Israel represents less than 0.2% of the world population. So that's incredible. But that 4% of venture capital dollars goes to become 10% of high-tech unicorns. Unicorns are companies that are worth $1 billion before they go public. Would you believe that 10% of these are now Israeli in the entire world, which is an absurd statistical anomaly, except it's not an anomaly when you realize that this country is indeed the startup nation and remarkable. But Jerusalem now has taken its rightful place in this story because, for example, the largest exit to date in Israel happens to be a Jerusalem company called Mobileye, which was bought by Intel for almost $16 billion. There are other unicorns already growing here, such as Lightrix. We're building this huge new complex over in Givat Ram. There are funds that are active in addition to OurCrowd, JVP and Pico and Terra and a whole bunch of others. And Jerusalem is quite special. Now, you might ask yourself, wait, isn't this really gotten ahead of itself? And isn't it going to slow down at some point? Aren't we living in a bubble? And the answer is no. This is just getting started, because you look at the newest generation, my kids and their friends around the city, they're all entrepreneurs. There's a new fund called Fresh Fund, set up by a child, a kid who grew up in my house, Zaki Jamal, whose parents were Olim from England. Okay, there is a new fund called Chetz, which now manages north of $100 million, set up by other kid of entrepreneurs. Judah Taub. It's simply generation upon generation. The old guys like me haven't left the field. I don't feel old. I'm still innovating. But my colleagues and comrades are all still doing new companies, but now we've been joined by these generations of the youngsters, the 20s and the 30s, who are incredible in terms of their talent and their skills. And I urge you to come join us, because the next 10 years in particular are going to be insane. And they're going to be insane because what's represented by the changes in technology, the whole revolution of IoT, the Internet of Things, what's happening with artificial intelligence, what's going to happen with quantum computing, what is going to happen with healthcare and digital health, everything going virtual, distance learning. You look at these trends, these are not bubbles. These are reality. And the change in the last 20 years in terms of the most valuable companies in the world, they have gone from being non-tech to tech. Literally 20 years ago, only one of the top 10 companies was a tech company, Microsoft. And now 9 out of 10 are tech. And this is a good thing, because this is the heart that drives Israel and drives Jerusalem. And in particular, Jerusalem gives you the ability to create a new model of innovation, where it's not throwing away all of the wisdom of the past. One of the problems I have with my friends in Silicon Valley is they don't really cherish or appreciate prior wisdom, right? It's clueless. It's not woke. It's not, somehow completely abnegating the past. Here in Jerusalem, it's impossible to escape the past. If you don't want to be engaged in some kind of a dialogue with the past in some way or another, probably Jerusalem would not necessarily be a good choice for you. But if you believe that the future is built in dialogue with the past, that there is a fertile ground between the future and the past, where choices need to be made, where you need to be both modern and traditional to some degree, because to throw away our tradition is just, I don't care where you're coming from religiously or ideologically, it's just dumb, because there's a lot of wisdom that we have accumulated over these thousands of years, and you feel it here in Jerusalem. And being on that fertile middle ground, I think is really one of the secrets of Jerusalem's success, and why our tech ecosystem is growing and going to be incredible. The new things that are happening now are in particular what's going on with Israel and the Gulf. That is of a huge, huge game changer, where we will be essentially, working closely with our partners in the UAE, Bahrain, and soon other countries. When you look at what's going on in terms of Israel's leadership in the world, in terms of the vaccine and some of the things we're doing with health, it really could not be better. So come, join us. Bring up your kids and your grandchildren. Enjoy the unbelievable weather. Enjoy the vibrant economy, which even with the pandemic, we had the smallest shrinkage of our economy of the entire OECD. Okay, we're doing well. We're living well. There are issues here, but there are issues. And in particular, Jerusalem, where we're going to solve many of these issues, is about bringing both Arabs into the story of innovation as well as Haredim in a more fundamental way, because these are issues that affect Israel and they can be best dealt with here in Jerusalem. It's an incredible place. I look forward to seeing you here. And if there are any questions that you have, I'd be happy to spend a few minutes answering them.
You mentioned this innovation, staying fresh, but it's something that's so simple to stay in. And you know, what's your secret? I guess. How do you stay on the edge of it as opposed to just sticking to what works and doing what worked in the old country or what worked yesterday or worked when you first made Aliyah? Because I'm sure the success you have hasn't been by finding one secret and continually doing that one
No,
thing.
it's deeply Jewish. Look at Avraham Avinu, guys and gals. Okay, look at Avraham and Sarah. They reinvented themselves at what seemed to be an old age, but they were fresh and they opened up. And you know, you see people who make Aliyah here who are in their 60s and 70s, and it renews them. It brings them, you know, not back to life. They never left life, but there's these challenges and excitement. There's somehow a connection here which I can't fully explain to sort of the umbilicus of the universe, to the life force. It's Yerushalayim, for crying out loud. And what an amazing thing, a bracha, to be here, to be involved in asiyah, into doing an action, to be connected to a community of both wonderful people and interesting people. What I find the most exciting about Jerusalem and about Israel in general is the diversity. There is no more diverse place. That's the biggest mistake that many of our enemies, you know, make about us. They cast us as a single color or a single kind. We are endlessly diverse, and that is our strength. Okay, it's Yachad Shiftei Yisrael. We work together, but we also have different shvatim, and that's not going to change. Okay, we come from over 100 countries back to our homeland, bringing different pieces of culture. We have totally different political ideas and religious ideas and cultural ideas. This is a source of strength, and I find the ability to constantly be renewed. Okay, it's a very Jewish concept, you know, on my sort of most basic level. And again, I'll end with my father, who, you know, taught me and really brought me to this understanding. My dad passed away at 83 from lymphoma. He worked before, you know, up to the last week of his life, okay, as the chief scientist of a technology company, you know, doing remarkable things. And the week before he passed away, we celebrated his second bar mitzvah at 83, and together with my brothers and his friends. And what he was talking about was starting a new startup. My father made Aliyah here at age 65. He proceeded to immediately start a new company at 65. It was his most successful company doing wireless optics. He somehow tied into this. And there's that phrase which we repeat, you know, in the Mizmor Shir Yom Shabbat about, you know, Od Yenavun B'Sevad Shenim V'Ra'anim Yiyu, that, you know, that basically you will stay fertile in your old age and you will be fresh and renewed constantly. And I always associated that. We actually put it on my father's gravestone here, buried he is in Har Menuchot. But I always felt that that's sort of, if you have a, you know, battle cry about what you would like, you know, make sure that you stay fresh as long as you can, because today we're going to, God willing, live longer and continue to be active and do things, and to do them in Jerusalem. It's an incredible blessing. And I think it's something that we can all sort of tie into. Thank you, Yaakov. I wish you guys really a great session tonight. And thank you for having me.
Man, thank you, John. What you said really, really resonates with I guess, the spirit of what's tonight, categorically each night. And part of sort of helping Olim find their way and find their footing in Jerusalem, there's so many faces of Jerusalem. He says, like, Jerusalem, Yerushalayim here at Kodesh, the most holy place that we talk about and yearn about and pray for thousands of years. And then sometimes it's just the most practical place in the world where you have to figure out how to open a bank account and figure out the closest grocery store. And sometimes it's education and something's very deep, how we're like re-educating our children and fresh. Like, there's so many different aspects, and each night of this week sort of entitles one of those little faces. And tonight, really, I think it's about the inspiration, and the inspiration comes from the people themselves, the people who come with that, like that life force, that chiyut, come here fresh and wanting to renew themselves and finding themselves like, okay, that's who I was, but now who else can I be when they arrive? And I really feel like in your presence and your presentation and the work you do in the community and in the business world, it's all about that reinventing and the renewing and taking the old and turning into something else, not just, okay, like shed one shell and find a new shell. And I really, this lineup tonight, you guys really encompass, like really embody that exact point, that aspect, that face of Yerushalayim that we want to show the world. And please God, everyone should know exactly what you're talking about in their personal experience, and not just hearing someone far off talk about it.
Amen.
Great. Next up, we have, thank you again for joining us, John.
I've got to unfortunately hop to another webinar, so I'm going to have to miss this, but I'll check out the recording later. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Next up, we have Orli Wahba. She's a social entrepreneur, founder and CEO of Life Vest Inside, and also opened a social platform based on prayer, which we might hear a little bit about, called Abraham's Legacy. Really just a rock star of community person. Like words aren't really going to do it. You probably have to hear words from Orli herself. So without further ado, Orli.
Thank you so much, Yaakov. It's really, I have to say, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. And I have to tell you why it's so much of a pleasure and honor. Because it was exactly 1 year ago, just 2 days ago, that my plane landed here. Right before COVID came in. It's like I always say, it's as though I slipped into home base before they closed the doors down. I feel very lucky about it. So I'm celebrating my 1 year here in Israel, in Jerusalem. And it's been the most incredible year, which I know could seem a little strange with COVID and all. But I say that there's no place in the world that I'd rather be than be in Jerusalem. You know, my love affair really with Israel and with Jerusalem specifically began ever since I was a little kid. I couldn't wait to get here. And who would have thought that, 30 plus years later, that dream would come into fruition. I actually got here 3 years ago. I was coming just for the year. It was going to be an adventure. And I said, I'm going to take the year to be here, to be in Jerusalem. I came for several reasons. One of which on a personal level, things weren't necessarily happening for me in New York. I come from New York. And, in terms of personal wise, finding my zivug, I said, all right, mishanem makom, mishanem mazal, you change your place, you change your luck. I'm going to come here for the year, going to see what happens. I also, as you said, I happen to run a nonprofit organization called Life Vest Inside, which is geared towards spreading kindness. So I said, okay, if I can be able to bring positive energy and positive noise into this area, then as they say, the light goes from Yerushalayim to light up the rest of the world. It's going to be easy. And so I got here 3 years ago, and it's been an incredible experience since then, and finally decided to make Aliyah and make it official just about a year ago. Just to give you a bit of background about my personal self. So I come from the Sephardic Syrian community in Brooklyn, New York, lived there my whole life. For those of you that know the community, it's not very, very frequent that people actually leave the community. You barely even move more than a block away from your mother. So to move to another country is a completely different kind of story. But like I said, I've always loved this country. And more than anything, I always prayed from a young age. I remember being 4 years old in my bed, and I would pray to Hashem every single night. And I prayed to have a front row seat to this very exciting time in history. And that's exactly where we're at. We are in a very exciting time in history. And I feel lucky that all those years later, all those prayers that I said as a kid growing up, who would have thought that they were going to come into fruition? And so, being, like I said, being from my community, it's not very frequent that people, pick up and that they leave. It's not a very common thing. And I had a background as a teacher. So I grew up in New York. I was a teacher for 7 incredible life-changing years. And about 10 years ago, I decided to take a leap of faith. Who would have known that leap of faith would lead me to take additional leaps of faith? Because I do believe that it's important to put ourselves out of our comfort zone every so often. That's really where the magic happens. And I decided to leave a job I loved, a job teaching, to pursue a dream I had ever since I was a kid. And it wasn't a dream per se of starting a nonprofit organization, but it was a dream of bringing people together through the power of kindness, empowering people to recognize just how amazing and how incredible they are, and to really shake the foundations of this world through the power of kindness. That's really was my goal, very, very much so. And so I took that leap of faith to leave my job teaching. It was supposed to be only a year. Again, everything I've started that's been a great decision started just being a year trial, and pursued this dream. And it started with a short film I did called Kindness Boomerang, all based on real life experiences I personally went through, moments that left an impression on my life. And this film ended up going crazy viral, reached well over 100 million people globally. How? I have absolutely no idea, but I do believe that this is something that we all connect to, the power of kindness and the power that each of us have to make an impact and a difference in this world. And so that itself was just an incredible journey. But I was a full-time volunteer for, until this day, 10 years, full-time volunteer. And oftentimes when you put your all to something, you're talking about changing the world, people look at you like you're nuts. What do you think you're going to do? You think you're going to make a difference? You left your job. You don't have a salary. What are you thinking? You're crazy. I got a tremendous amount of discouragement, but I'm no stranger to discouragement, that's for sure. And about a few years ago, before I decided to come here, different things in my life were going on. There were certain hardships that were happening for me. Again, being a volunteer for so many years, not making a salary is not a very easy thing to do, especially when you're getting loads of discouragement from the people around you. And sometimes discouragement comes from the people that are closest to you. It doesn't mean that they don't love you. It doesn't mean that they don't believe in you. Oftentimes when people can't have the courage to believe in your dream, it's because, in fact, they don't have the courage to believe in theirs. So if they can't believe in their dreams, how could they possibly believe in yours? And so I was going through some difficult times, and I happened to find myself in Israel for the summer. And something started to shift in me. I've always loved Israel. I grew up coming here every summer. My father was born here. And I said, I feel like I need to make a change, but how am I possibly going to do it? How is it even almost possible? I had been a volunteer. I had no funding set aside for myself, but I knew I needed to make the change. And so I was praying with all of my heart by the Kotel. I remember praying and walking on the Tel Aviv beaches and praying and say, please, I need to be here. I said, I want to come here, maybe even for 6 months, a year. And when I got back to New York, I did two things. Number one, I started telling people that I was coming for the year. As I always say, people, they talk. The news spreads quickly. And I said, if they'll start talking about it, eventually it'll become my reality and I'll find myself living here. And through a series of crazy happenstances, I know I won't have the time to go into in full detail now. And through an angel who connected me with finding a place that I can live and different happenstances, I was able to finally make the journey here to Israel. And as I said, I got here, I didn't know anybody. I mean, I do have some family here. I have family from my father's side, but I didn't have a community here. The excitement from the moment that I landed, now I never thought I was going to be making Aliyah. I completely thought I'm going to be going back to New York, back to my family, where I was supposed to be, according to the plan that was laid out for me. But the minute that the plane touched down, something in me shifted. Now I've made the trip here many times, but something in me shifted in a way that's very hard to explain. And it felt like Jerusalem specifically fit me like a glove. I was suddenly walking on the streets of Jerusalem, and it felt like I was looking at the city and I was looking at the world through like the eyes of a child. Everything was new. Everything is so exciting. There is an energy in the city that's very hard to explain. It really is. You could see hashgacha pratit everywhere around the world. You see God's hand in what you're doing. But if you don't see it in Jerusalem, it's like you're blind. It's crazy just how much it's in your face. And through so many stories of just incredible people that came into my life, one of the first things that I wanted to do when I got here said, I want to be able to start creating a community for myself. So I said, okay, I'm going to join a co-working space. I'll get to meet people there. I'm going to join a basketball league because I figured it'd be a fantastic opportunity to get to meet actual Israelis. Turns out I ended up meeting my very best friend in my basketball league. And I started creating just an incredible community of friends where, thank God, my apartment is an apartment that everyone comes to on Shabbatot. And it's just, I feel so much embraced in this city. And like John said, it's funny, he said, the reason I love this city more than anything is its diversity. I love the diversity here and the fact that it just works. You know, I have to tell you, but more than that, it's a sense of community and family. When you're here, it's like every person is rooting for you to succeed. That's what I found. Everyone is, they're trying to figure out how they can help you succeed in whichever way is possible. When I first got here, I wanted to take an event that I do with my nonprofit. So through Life Vest Inside, we look to spread kindness. And one of the ways that we do it is through these international events. And one of the events is called Dance for Kindness. It's a global event that happens around the world all on the same day. How am I going to possibly pull this off here? I don't know anybody here in the city. How am I going to make this happen here? Unbelievable. Everybody, anybody you speak to, oh, I know somebody you can reach out to. I know somebody you can contact. A producer, I'll never forget, Aniv Cohen. I love this guy. He said, I'm going to help you do this. I love what you're about. I love what you're doing. Didn't take anything from me, not a dollar from me, not a shekel, to help bring this into Israel. This amazing event that we had thousands of people at this event on the first year. We had Yishai Ribo performing. How? I liked his music. I didn't even know who he was 100%. I loved his music. I tracked him down, was talking to him about this event, and boom, it happened. Crazy things continue to happen. And as a result of that event, the municipality for education, the education department reached out to me. And the following year, they had the event in 26 schools throughout Israel. Who would have thought? Here I am, a girl from Brooklyn. I have this idea, but through this amazing network of family, it's not strangers. You maybe didn't meet them yet, but you're not strangers, you're family. So many incredible things were able to start up. And while I was here in Israel, in addition to that, during my 40-day Kotel challenge, I went every day for 40 days to the Kotel to pray for my zivug. I still didn't find him yet, or he didn't still find me yet, but Hashem plants the seeds. He makes things happen very special. And on my 40th day, I announced the project that I wanted to launch here in Israel called Abraham's Legacy. It's a social network for tefillah. I was praying for 500 people each day during my 40 days. And so I decided to launch this on my 40th day. And just about a year and change ago, the app was finally released here in Israel and throughout the world. And that was something that I was able to create here. It's through the energy. There is an energy here. It lights you up. I remember first being here, I couldn't even sleep, not because I had problems sleeping, but because I was filled with this incredible energy and light that I just continue to want to share out to the world. I feel very lucky. And each day that passes, I feel lucky that I'm here in Israel. Now, yes, of course, there are going to be days where things are tough. Things are tough anywhere. There's always going to be hardships. The thing I always say is, at the end of my day, no matter how difficult of a day it is, I'm able to say, but wait a second, Orli, but you're living in Jerusalem. And suddenly, things are not all that bad. So I feel very lucky to be here. And I hope that you consider making the journey. It's a very worthwhile journey. And the minute that you make that effort and you make that step, things end up coming into play to help you get here and to help to keep you here. There is a family waiting here to embrace you. All you got to do is take that first step. Thank you guys so much.
Wow. Thank you, Orli. So much of what you said resonates so deeply in what my experience of Jerusalem has been as well. The sense of more than community, family, and the fact that it's the most diverse place in the world, and it's the most like everything all at once. And the pieces when you're there and you ask for it and it comes together. Thank you so much for putting that into words. You add a ton to the community aspect, and Jerusalem is made up of these people. And again, this is just a little taste, just a few people, a few little lights that we could share with the world. But this is literally you people with us tonight are what make up that feeling, that reality that you're describing. So thank you for contributing to it, and thank you for reflecting it back.
Thank you.
And next up, we have Kalman Delmoor, known as the Jerusalem Scribe. An amazing, amazing artist, also a fantastic personal friend I could also vouch for. But really someone who we talk about reinventing, and I feel in the spirit of the way John earlier brought up, like that we take the old and we make it brand new, but so Kalman is trained classically as a scribe, and he does tremendous artwork with it. It's really a pleasure to have Kalman with us tonight to share a little bit about what he does, where he works, and just to give us a little image into life of a Jerusalem artist in the truest sense.
Yeah, thank you, Yaakov. Thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you, Orli, for inspirational words. Yeah, so my name is Kalman Gabriel Delmoor, and I came to Israel actually as a gap year student in 2007, 2008. So I think a lot of American, I guess as modern Orthodox or, religious students, it's very common. And when I came to Israel, I wasn't particularly Zionist, nor was I particularly inspired. I think I was pretty average just in terms of, where post-high school kids are and what we're thinking about. I hadn't decided where I wanted to go to college yet, but it probably would have been one of the, standard 3 or 4 places on the East Coast. And I really fell in love with the land of Israel. I think when I was growing up, I always had a certain, connection to spirituality and religion. Growing up in an Orthodox religious home, and for my parents and my family, I have a lot of appreciation. But just talking about the larger picture for a moment, I kind of saw it as a little bit of an empty shell. It was almost like just that like the social media was important and deep, and religion was like shallow. It was like the world was like a fuch. Like everything was like, and I didn't understand. I didn't have a deep enough connection. But coming to Israel and seeing the land, not just the textbooks, but the holy books, and kind of looking at it with fresh eyes and seeing it in a very different way, I fell in love with the land of Israel, and I continued studying. I went to a yeshivat hesder, a hesder yeshiva, actually with Yaakov, for 2 years, and it was in Othniel, the Hebron Hills, and not knowing a word of Hebrew made it seem impossible. But with a small group of Americans, we were together, and slowly over the course of a year, plus to speak Hebrew and to integrate into the Israeli society and Israeli chevra, as we say. Then I drafted into the IDF. I served in the paratroopers unit. I think throughout that time, I really fell in love and appreciated the culture of Israel. And I don't mean the culture like in the media and like kind of the fast-paced thing. The culture, just appreciation of how people are. I think there's kind of like there's an essence, and even if majority of families aren't as what we'd call upper class or wealthy, and not every kid has a credit card and a smartphone and all the different accessories that Americans are used to. There's a certain sense of self, of being, of service. That's definitely what I saw for people that came into the drafted into the IDF, and I really loved that. And at the time, when I was studying in yeshiva, I learned Sofer Stam, which is writing, the holy text. It's a scribe, and I fell in love with that. But I realized that, it wasn't really the right career path for me to be a Sofer Stam. I wanted to also had, I guess, like an artist or artistic want to share. So it was really, it took a couple years to think about it. And it was really while I was serving in the IDF that I came to the understanding that, wow, I can make scribal artwork. I can make artwork out of the holy Hebrew letters, which on one hand can be something, very aesthetic and beautiful, just, another piece of Judaica, Jewish artwork. And on the other hand, it can also be something very profound and have a lot of ruchnius, a lot of spirituality infused in it. And as we know, the letters are on one hand just the simple text of our language, and on the other hand, Lashon HaKodesh, the holy language. And there's books, there's volumes, there's libraries filled of deep understandings about the holy letters and what that's all about. So I really loved coming to that realization that I can try to fuse these two parts. These parts, can seen as like an artistic and educational or a Jewish traditional view. And I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to try to. And let me see here. Just Yaakov, let me know if you see the share screen properly. So this is a picture of me writing at my desk. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so today I got out of the military in 2014, so it's almost 8 years ago, and I decided to become a professional scribe and Scribal artist. So I sit currently in the old city of Jerusalem, actually at a historical site. That's where I've been for the last 4 years. It's called the Four Sephardic Synagogues, and before Corona, that is, it was a tourist attraction, and so people would come through the traditional synagogues, and there was a need to bring it to life. You know, it was kind of looked at as a museum, which was a little depressing. A museum is something that's like no longer exists and isn't alive, and so to add an element of a scribe in the synagogues. And so I began sitting there, and I also began teaching Scribal workshops, which is, let me see if I have, so I don't have any pictures of that, but basically giving people the opportunity to feel like a scribe and to experience what it feels like to be a scribe, even for an hour. Let me show you a couple pieces of artwork. We'll start with, this is the Lion of Judah. See the, and the idea is to take, Torah text and psukim and combine them with an image and a concept. So this actually is written it was written for a person named Zion, actually. And it says here, Dash, Ir Zion Timalev, Visham Nashir Shir Chadash. Okay, so it's a song, and then in the main it has the pasuk for his name, for Zion. So let's see, let's go on to another piece. What I'm going to show now is an example of synagogue art. Here we go. This is a shiviti, and traditionally we'll see this in Sephardic synagogues, but I wanted to, I guess with synagogue art, I realized there isn't such a big investment into the beauty of synagogue art, and the traditional beautiful things don't have representation in like a modern art style. So this is just one example of that. I see we only have a few minutes to speak. So let me maybe show one more piece. We can speak about it for a moment. So this is actually a piece that the original one I made while I was serving in the IDF. And do you see the whole picture? Yeah. So it's actually the prayer for soldiers in the shape of a soldier praying. Remember I was on the Syrian border in the north, and we were on a very small base. We had about, we had to do like a 4-hour shift, and then we had about 12 hours, downtime. And I would sit in the Beit Knesset, and I would write this. I began using the bima as a desk. So it was an amazing opportunity really that I had while I was, in the IDF, to really start to manifest, this concept. And today, just to see where I'm at now, I work in the old city, and I have a full gallery amount of pieces, and I work with clients, and I run workshops, and it's really amazing connecting to the artist community in Jerusalem and really worldwide, because I think a lot of people look towards Jerusalem for an inspiration. And I think the need for that inspiration is really something that's growing. People are more interested in connecting to their Jewish roots, and people are more interested in finding, deep things with deeper meanings or more meditative directions. And I think for us and for entrepreneurs and people with this, forward thinking, to take the technologies and the modern and the chachmas, the wisdom of really living in the 21st century, and right, connecting between, the old school and the new school. And we see this, and I really think young people today that are interested in thinking about making Aliyah should realize that in a certain way, and in a very deep way, Jerusalem and Israel is like the capital of the world. And I know some of my artists, friends and connections are literally world famous people. And it's an amazing thing. And we see here, and the people we're speaking with today, It's like a hotbed of really thoughtful, really deep, really inspired people. And when we can connect those, those vessels and that light together, and I think that's the land of Israel and those people and these souls, it's an amazing opportunity. And I think, not to be overwhelmed, but there's a lot of structure and foundation already exists in Israel. There's a lot of artist grants that you can get from the government. There's a network of people that would support and promote you. So if somebody is interested in taking an art direction, I really would recommend that, and I'd be happy to be a resource for anybody to explain more. And just to close with, I know Yaakov, we spoke about, there was actually a project. I'm going to share my screen one more time. There's a project in Jerusalem through the municipality about 5 years ago. And let me see if I can find this picture. But they actually shared, here we go. So I was able, this was a few years after my military service, and I got to have this amazing kind of a small billboard outside of the Jaffa Gate, and it was really nice. And I think by representing the Anglo or the Oleg community, and you see the fellows like next to me, they're both, I think one's Armenian Christian and one is Arab in the Arab Shuk. It was a promotion of the old city for more of like a touristy direction, but to show that I think the Anglo, idea and vision is really appreciated. And I'm saying that from the place of coming from my upbringing, my understanding of the world really comes from, a Western American viewpoint. I don't think I was so different than, all the other kids around me. I was just given the opportunities and the ability to stay in Israel and to let those seeds really, really grow and flourish. So I hope moving forward, that will happen more and more. And I think it's very important, and I think people will agree that definitely in Israel, the word collaboration, the word unity, the word coming together and making something that's more than just the sum of its parts or the power of the individual is really chazak, is really strong. So let me.
Wow, thank you, Kalman.
Yeah.
Really resonates with the theme we're hearing tonight, this idea of newness and this incredible energy, creative spirit that just kind of gathers together in Jerusalem. It's so real, and it's like funny because you think, can I really build my life on creative spirit and energy? And we're seeing, like, in a lot of ways, yes, but there, like you said, there's a lot of structure in place for it.
Yeah, I also have to thank my wife for helping me have some of the structure.
Amen. Soon by everyone who needs one. They all have a significant other in their lives to give them the structure that they may need, if that's what they're missing.
It's for the artist spirit.
Especially for the artists among us, says Kalman. But really, the idea of being like this hotbed of creative energy where things just really just sort of enmesh. It's hearing like so many different perspectives on this, of this sort of newness and creativity, and along with being in touch with the oldness and some practical tools, like you mentioned, there's good structure in place for it. The municipality has an art program as well called Art Koresh. Links on Facebook to Kalman's page and his artist page, as well as municipal artist resources. We'll follow in the chat for people who want to hear more about that. And again, feel free to be in touch with us personally if you have practical questions about your Aliyah. But thank you so much for the inspiration and sharing for us what drives you and what makes it work for you, Kalman. Keeping the spirit of that, we'll hear from Maggi Feldman, also a recent Ola. She's a small business owner in Jerusalem, had the guts to get started since the Corona outbreak with Made by Maggi, also an artist, and you've probably seen some of her signs around town here or there. If you saw a really classy little sign, then you might not know where it came from. Really incredible individual as well. So we're happy to hear from Maggi about her experience of being a new Ola in Yerushalayim and what it's like to be a small business owner.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's like so cool to be here with so many incredible artists and entrepreneurs. And really just thanks for having me. Great. So basically, I came to Israel a few years ago on a Masa program. And it's funny because it seems like a lot of people here come to Israel to check it out before really if this is knowing what they want to do or not. So that's what I did. I came on a Masa program about 3 years ago at MITF, and I knew I wanted to be in Jerusalem. I knew that basically I had just finished college, went to FIT and then in New York, and I'm from New York. And I just wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I had a lot of hardships. My brother had just passed away. I was just really struggling, didn't know like where I was, what I was doing here. But I knew that like I had this gut feeling, like, and always trust your gut. I said, I have to be in Israel. Like, college is done, whatever, following my gut, I have to go. So I decided to join MITF really last minute. And I took the year in Jerusalem. And it's really important to like, when you have these feelings of something that you know you want or something you really want to do, to just like follow that instinct, because it's really just something telling you, right, that there's something out there for you. And it's really important to listen to your instincts and how you feel. With that being said, I came to Israel and I was on this Masa program, and all these like crazy things started happening to me. It's almost as if like, for me, God was telling me like, this is where you belong. So I met my husband, my two months into the program. And it was just so funny. We had our first date, both ended up being New Yorkers. We were neighbors, had no clue, and all these like little crazy connections along the way. And so I had the best year on Masa ever. Highly recommend. If you're thinking about making Aliyah and you're just unsure, to do a program. So I did that program. I finished, and I for sure right away was like, I need to make Aliyah. I found love. My boyfriend at the time already had made Aliyah. He was living here. And but I was still a little nervous. Like I just didn't know what I was gonna do and how it was gonna be. Now it's been about a year and a few months since I made Aliyah, and it's just been so much more than I could have ever expected. It's just been a crazy year. So I actually made Aliyah a few months before COVID had began. So I spent my first few months here in seminary. I went to Mayanot and I was studying for quite some time. Went to Machonara as well. And I was really just connecting to myself, figuring out what it is that I'm going to do here. And when I was back in college, I had entered this competition. It's a company called Cricket that had come to my school, and they had these really cool machines, and you could make all these really amazing things with it. And I entered this competition to basically enter for some money to help post-graduation and everything. So, and I won these machines, and I didn't know what I was going to do with them. I didn't know how I was going to use it in my life. So I said, okay, whatever, fine. But I brought it when I made Aliyah. And I noticed, I said, okay, like maybe I can start my own business. Maybe I can do something with this. And I just started davening and praying and really just putting it out there into the universe to God. I think I can do this. I can have my own business. I can work from home. That's the ideal life for me, you know, be there for my husband and everything. So really a big part of this journey was, thank God, I was able to get these machines in college, and I brought them over in my Aliyah suitcase, took up all the weight to bring these machines here. And I started, just started making signs. People would reach out to me, and next thing you know, I'm making a sign for someone's door. I'm making a sign for, you know, blessings of the home. A business reached out, but it's kind of crazy because my very first project was really, you know, something that really got me going. So basically the way the Cricut machine works is you can cut all kinds of different designs on it, and you can really paste it on a lot of different things, wood, acrylic. And so that's kind of how I was making my signs. People contacted me, and I would work completely custom to make all of these designs. And so then one day I was walking past a makeup store called Delmoor Cosmetics, and I kind of went in, we started talking. And next thing you know, she asked me to start designing things inside of her shop, on the doors, on the windows. It's like a big job for me. It's like my first time. And I'm like, wow, this is like a lot to take on. Do I do it? Of course, take it. Always, when you're scared, that's just, you know, God trying to push you down a direction. It's natural to be scared, and it's important to just like keep going and to push forward. So exactly what I did, I took on this big task, and I designed like these all front windows, and I was doing all these amazing things using my Cricut machine. And after that, I was kind of just fearless. I was like, okay, if I could do a store, I could do this for anything. And so from then on, I just kept praying and kept working really hard. And next thing you know, I did a menu for craft pizza in Jerusalem and the Shuk, and I started doing different businesses, and I started building up like lots of clients and people coming to me all the time for all these custom signs. But really, like, how this happened has a lot to do with Jerusalem and how well connected it is. And, you know, as much as I pray and as much as, you know, I hope and things happen and they manifest when you believe, which is very, very true. It was how connected Jerusalem really is. You know, there's nothing. I just want to stress that nothing is impossible here in Jerusalem. I really, really believe that there's always someone to help you, always someone who's going to just support you and be there and help spread the word if you want to start your own business or for anything that you need help with. It really is like a family, and it really is a very special place where anything is possible. And for me, I just had this complete start over. I left New York, came to Israel just to completely renew. And that's exactly what happened. And now, thank God, I've been started this business during COVID. Just really, it's like the universe kind of just happened. I had no job, just made Aliyah. I was running out of my Aliyah money, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I said, I have these machines. Let me just take that step and go for it. And like Orli said, it's just taking that first step, not being afraid, trusting, and knowing that you have so much family and friends around to help you. Even if, I mean, I technically have no family in Israel at all, but your friends become your family. You know, Israel Kalman helped me so much on my journey. Thank you so much. I mean, I was going into his office all the time. He would give me all these ideas, all of these ways to be well connected. And with the Facebook group, Secret Jerusalem, there's always somebody to help you, no matter what it is, a way for you to just get exposure, or if you need help with anything, there's always someone there to help you. And I think with this family dynamic that Jerusalem has is the reason why I was able to start a business, get up a website, and have what I have now. And I'm so grateful. And I really do believe that none of this would have happened. I wouldn't have my own business, nothing, if I didn't come to Israel. And there's something about being here in Jerusalem specifically that the energy is just going, it's flowing. Like there's so many, everything's well connected. You know, you see things happening, and it's that kind of energy that I think makes Jerusalem what it is, just a beautiful place, peaceful, loving, and really just, if it wasn't for me coming to Jerusalem, I don't think I could have the business that I have now. So that's really that.
Thank you, Maggie, for sharing some of that energy and inspiration of what it takes to just jump in and start life, and what it means to do it here, specifically in Jerusalem. And it's amazing to hear so many people talk about Aliyah as, again, it's both Aliyah is the biggest privilege and a very demanding undertaking, but to hear how sounds like Jerusalem literally gives you wings, hearing you talk. It's very special to hear the inspiration. Again, if anyone out there is looking for inspiration, check out Maggie's Facebook page, see a little bit like what she does. I bet if you private messenger from her page, she'll even respond. So we'll post her page as well in the chat. And thank you for joining us. Really, you add a lot.
Thank you so much.
Next up, we are honored to have the Deputy Mayor of the City of Jerusalem, Fleur Hassan Nahoum. We're honored to have you with us tonight to hear a little bit about your Aliyah story and your perspective from the Lishkat Roshi, or from the mayor's headquarters. How do you see the City of Jerusalem, and what gets you excited about what we're doing here?
So thank you very much for inviting me to speak. It's really wonderful to speak to other Olim. And I'm very excited because on Thursday, it's mine and my husband's 20-year anniversary that we're in Jerusalem, in Israel. We made Aliyah in March 2001. And I can't believe it's 20 years already. It's incredible. So first of all, I wanna, say that we're so grateful for the wonderful work that your department does, Yaakov and Israel. We have a real absorption department in our city, and people get help from you, and their lives are so much easier and smoother because of the work that you do. So first of all, kol hakavod. I'm very proud to come from a city that takes Aliyah and Olim so seriously in different languages, and I hear this all the time. So really well done. What can I say? So 20 years ago, my husband and I, we didn't have any kids at the time. We're just newly married. and we decided that we wanted to make Aliyah. And there was a bit of a catch. It was right at the beginning of the second Intifada, and our families didn't want us to come because at that time there were bombs going off in Jerusalem every week in bars or restaurants, and it was a very tough time for Jerusalem, actually. Tourism was at an all-time low, and people didn't go out. It's kind of a little bit like now, but now, thankfully, you know, our lives are not at risk in the same way, but they were then in 2001. But my husband and I decided that there would never be a good time to make Aliyah. And so we just packed our bags and came. We landed with 12 suitcases. And honestly, I've never, ever in these last 20 years thought for one moment about returning or coming back, or that we didn't belong, or that we'd be better off somewhere else. I'm not saying it's always been easy, but we're kind of always had the conviction that this is where we're supposed to be and this is where we're supposed to raise our family. And thank God we had four children that were born here. So they're Sabras and Jerusalemites, and you know, they're Israelis in every way. And the way I see it is that we've given them a gift to be born here and not have to learn Hebrew like I did at age 28. So Jerusalem is, like the previous speaker, it's really the land of opportunities. I love the positivity that she was giving. And I think that it is true in so many ways. There's so much diversity in the city and so many opportunities if you look at it that way. I think Aliyah is all about perspective. If you come here with a good attitude, not comparing everything to the country that you came to, and really looking at the glass half full, I think it can be a very significant experience. And I think it can be a very positive experience. Again, I'm not for 1 second saying it's not tough. There were a lot of tough moments, but I think, you know, if you have conviction and you have faith, I think you can really make it. And somebody very smart said to me once, you know, at the end of the day, you can come to Israel with all the ideology in the world, but you stay because you like it. You stay because it's good for you here. And so I think that's really the bottom line. And this is the work that we try and do in the city, to try and help people find the good, the fun, the meaningful in life here in Jerusalem. And for those of you who don't know, Jerusalem is the biggest absorber of immigrants. Every year we compete with Tel Aviv, but normally we win. We have the highest amount of immigrants in the country. I'm not saying everybody stays here, but a lot of people start off here. And a lot of people study Hebrew here. And this is kind of a lot of people's first experience. And over the years, I've met so many people who've said, oh, we started off in Jerusalem and we had to leave because of work, because of housing, but we still miss it. And we still see our time in Jerusalem as such a special time. And so I came to Jerusalem and I found a job in nonprofit. My husband is a dentist and he had to take exams to be a dentist in Israel, which he did. And after he took the exams, he went to the army and said, I know you need dentists, take me. So he was in the army for 5 years until today. He's a Miluim major in Miluim, Sgan Aluf in Miluim. And that in itself for him was an incredible integrator doing the army. It's the only way he learned Hebrew. I continued on in Ulpan. I got a job in nonprofit. And for many years, that's what I did. Until I opened up my own business. I opened up a communications consulting company. And finally, I was asked to advise a small political party for the local elections. And I got sucked into city politics. I ran for City Hall in 2013. I didn't get in initially, and then I got in with rotation in 2016. And I've been a city councilwoman now for almost 5 years and deputy mayor for 2 years. So I think that it's really, I think that the city provides incredible opportunity in job finding. I think we need to do, on a government level, we need to do a lot more in terms of bringing young talent from other countries. But ultimately, I really think it's about outlook and attitude. Some people are so thrilled to be here And some people, you know, come here expecting things to be a combination of the countries that they come from and are disappointed. So I really think that to come to Jerusalem, you have to come with an open mind, with a good attitude, with a positive attitude, and you can be actually really, really happy here, live a very fulfilling life. We have the best education system in the country. We have the most cultural activities in the country. We have a lot of different language communities in the country. And so again, it's hard. It took us years to find a community that we were happy with. But ultimately, if you persevere and you don't give yourself an option to go anywhere else, and you know that en li eretz acheret, this is where I am, this is where I'm going to lay my hat. Jerusalem really is a very, very special place to live. And the fact that this was built as the capital of our people 3,000 years ago, and we continue to build the capital of our people, to me, is the most significant and exciting thing about living here. And so all I can say to the Olim are, my door is always open. As a city councilwoman, deputy mayor, I see myself as the Olim of the city as my constituency. And so please, I'm not difficult to find. If you ever need anything, you have this amazing department of professionals, but if you need anything more, I'm always here to serve the immigrants of our city.
Thank you, Fleur, for the words of both inspiration and practical, someone who could talk about it and actually do something about it. It's really amazing to have you on board, to have you with us tonight, and to have you with us in the city council and representing Olim and their needs, and from the perspective of someone who really understands what it's like and how the need to evolve. We really appreciate it. To wrap up our evening, we're going to hear from one last special set of guests, Rachel Lemisch and her dear husband, Jason Rosenblatt, two local artists who play, as we'll hear, the music. We'll maybe hear a few words from them as well as song. Most impressively, in October, they made Aliyah with 4 kids, and they are loving life here from what I hear. Really living. And we're pleased to have you with us tonight. So please, Jason and Rachel.
Thank you very much. And just to kind of reiterate what Fleur said, is that thank God we got our kids into school pretty quickly, and we couldn't be happier with the school that we chose, Eitan in our Mona Natziv neighborhood. It's a wonderful school, and we're really thrilled to have them in that institution. So it's again, we couldn't be happier. And we live in Baka now. Every day when we walk the kids to school and back from school, we walk on the Tayelet, and there's the reminder why we're here. You walk and you look at the view of the old city of Jerusalem, and if you're having a bad day, that brightens your day up right away, and it kind of gives you all the inspiration and the reason why we're here is to know you're in Jerusalem, and that view says so much. And everyone talked so beautifully, so I think we're just going to play some music. We're going to play a song. Actually, this is not about Jerusalem. This is a song called Hav Meiron that I wrote in Montreal, but it just goes to show you that even though we were living in Montreal, playing weddings and playing Jewish day schools, we always have Israel in our hearts, and it was something that we were sorely lacking. That the idea that we can talk about Israel and we can sing about Israel, but we weren't here. So we felt that at some point we actually had to make the move, and thank God we did when we did, and we're glad to be here. So Hav Meiron. We have a few more tunes. We're going to continue with actually a song that Rachel wrote that's called Waltz Tel Aviv. So not Jerusalem, unfortunately, but it still shows that even in Chutz La'aretz we're thinking about, we're still thinking about Israel. In fact, before I moved here, I received a grant from the Quebec Arts Council, and I wrote, every single tune I wrote was named after either a city or a region of Israel. Dance Akko, Dance Ashkelon, Dance Mitzpeh Ramon, Midbar Yehuda. So when I submitted the final report, the administrator asked me, where are all these places? What are all these places? These are places in Quebec. I said, yeah, I wrote them in Quebec, and yes, these are Quebecois tunes, but in reality, my heart was somewhere else. So I only felt it was fair to give them titles of where my heart was at the time when I wrote those songs. So here's Waltz Tel Aviv, because obviously when we were sitting in our basement in Montreal, Rachel wasn't thinking about the snow outside, she was thinking about the beach. That I wrote actually about 2010, 2011, and we were playing a lot of shows on various campuses, mostly Jewish music, and we noticed that Israel wasn't necessarily the most popular country on campuses back in 2010, to say the least. And I wrote a song called Zion is Not a Four-Letter Word. And I'm going to read out the lyrics, or just a little bit of the lyrics, just so you can hear them, because I'm not so sure with Zoom how much you guys out there can hear the lyrics are coming across. But basically, it talks how I feel about Jerusalem, looking over the hills as the red sun sets, a beautiful crown for the queen of capitals. This day has ended, a new one begins, as people fill the streets and crowd the city squares. different colors, speaking different languages, gathered together from all four corners, from the east to the western wall, from the dance hall to the study hall, markets, bus stops, line up, stand up. And then we continue, because we won't see these pictures on the news or read them in reports from NGOs, just walls or blown out cars, not the music in the bars, the children playing in the streets, nor the old folks smiling. We no longer weep by Babylon's rivers. Our guitars no longer hang in the trees. We never forgot thee. My tongue cleaves to nothing. My right arm is strumming. Can't you hear my right arm strumming? Zion is not a four-letter word. So that was the song I wrote and performed with the band called Jump Babylon, and the record still exists. The band doesn't, but I'll play it for you this evening. Well, looking over the hills as the red sun sets, a beautiful crown for the king of capitals. This day has ended, a new one begins, and people fill the streets and crowd the city squares. Different colors speaking different languages, gathered together from all four quarters, from the east to the western wall to the dance hall and study hall, markets, bus stops, line up, stand up, 'cause we won't see these pictures on the news or read them in reports by NGOs. Just walls and blown up cars, not the music in the bars, the children playing in the streets, nor the old folks smiling. We no longer weep by Babylon's rivers, our guitars no longer hang in the trees. We never forgot thee, our tongues leave to nothing. My right arm is strumming, can you see my right arm strumming? Zion is not a four-letter word. 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 Consolation, consolation, my nation. We shout it from the hills as we dream of home, of alleys and valleys paved with songs, and songs that we've been singing for 3,000 years. As we won't see these pictures on the news, we'll read them in reports by NGOs. Just walls and blown out cars, not the music in the bars, the children playing in the streets, nor the old folks smiling. We no longer weep by Babylon's rivers, our guitars no longer hang in the trees. We never forgot thee, my tongue cleaves to nothing. My right arm is strumming, can you see my right arm strumming? Zion is not a four-letter word. 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 With the sound of Zion we cry, after double the exile, twice the reward. Lectured on justice, hey, we invented justice puzzles. Screw UN sanctions and cable news programs, 'cause we no longer weep by Babylon's rivers, our guitars no longer hang in the trees. We never forgot thee, our tongues cleave to nothing. My right arm is strumming, can you see my right arm strumming? Zion is not a four-letter word. 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 Thank you. I'm going to end off with the song called After Party Freilach. We have had a band called Scribal, based in Montreal, and thank God we had the opportunity to tour extensively in Canada, US, Europe, and with Corona, it's been difficult in terms of live performances and whatnot. And every musicians, people that I know that are in live performance, whether it be dancers or artists, but mostly musicians, those are the people I tend to hang out with. everyone's having a tough go of it. And I said, if I have to restart my career again, I'd rather restart it in Israel than restart it back home. We're extremely happy to be here, and thank God Rachel's already found work with Tizmoret Klezmer Israeli, playing a bunch of outdoor shows. I'm going to be doing a show at the train station next week. We see things coming back to life here. We see, thank God, vaccination program was successful, one of the most successful in the world, and we're looking forward to many more weddings and smachot and playing simchas. That's what we do. That's what we love to do. So after party, Freilach.
Stand up for this one. That's just the standing up one. And then it's okay.
much. Thanks for having us. Rachel, Lemisch. Are there any questions you guys have?
That was absolutely excellent. Thank you so much. It was a perfect end to a wonderful evening.
Perfect. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for coming.
Our pleasure. Anytime.
Thank you, Jason and Rachel. Amazing way, as Israel said, amazing way to wrap up the evening with real Jerusalem-inspired music. It's nothing better. I think that really wrapped up everything better than words possibly could. I just want to remind anyone who's with us to the end that Tuesday night, we have more programming, more on the less inspirational side, more on the practical side. A chance to meet and understand the different government offices and the different steps in the Aliyah process. On Thursday, we'll hear from a number of elementary schools and hear about the education system and education opportunities for your children here in Jerusalem. And following Sunday, a week from today, we'll hear about different neighborhoods in Jerusalem and which one might suit you the best, all right here on the same event page, week after week. Again, thank you, Jason and Rachel. That was unbelievable. Thanks for giving us like a little extra life, a boost to end this off just right. That last song, I think, really was After Party Freilich.
Yes.
Couldn't have said better myself. So thank you again. And that's it. Our details are in the chat. There's links to every person who spoke tonight. There's a link to their page or their website. So feel free to reach out to people through their pages. Reach out to myself and Yisrael if you want to plan and talk about your Aliyah process. That's what we do. We love doing it. So please reach out. Laila Tov.
Thank you.